Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Let's Talk News. I'm Leticia Remauro. And whether you have landed here intentionally or by accident, I'm happy to have you, especially as we are headed into America's 250th birthday. So, this is the last show before the 4th of July. And so, I thought we'd have a little fun, and I thought we would talk about the founding fathers and mothers of America, because a lot of people don't know how many women were actually involved in the Revolutionary War. Some actually fought. Some were notorious because they enlisted for the money but never actually fought. They dressed as men, disguised themselves, and enlisted, but they didn't fight. They kind of ran away. They were later caught. But some actually disguised themselves, enlisted, and fought and were wounded and got a retirement settlement, a pension from Washington. So there's a lot of things to talk about today, but I wanted to say hello to everybody first. We have Kevin from the other side of the world, but the same side of our issues. And then we have Kevin Young. So we have Kevin Wall and Kevin Young, although it says Young James Kevin on his profile. But it's always good to have both Kevins from this side of the earth and the other side of the earth. So we have Kevin bookends. It's fantastic, both with conservative thinking. We have Karen from up north. How are you, Karen? Good to have you. Happy 4th. Hello, my sister Angela Ricca. Good to have you. And we have Teresa Canepa. How are you, Teresa? Good to have you. And Richard Lutman, our friend. Good to have you, Richard. So anyway, I don't know where to start because we have the professor here. How are you, professor? There's so much interesting tidbits, to talk about. Like, did you know that, and I'm sure many of you did, but just in case, when you think about the founding fathers, you think about these bunch of old men who were, signing the Declaration of Independence and crafting it and creating it. While the average age of the 56 Declaration signers was 44. Thomas Jefferson was only 33. Alexander Hamilton was 33. Washington was 43. And James Madison was 46. Was 36. And I don't know if you knew that Ben Franklin, who was one of our founding fathers, of course, he enjoyed air baths. So he believed I was searching for the word. He was an amazing inventor. He was the Elon Musk of that time. Benjamin Franklin actually enjoyed air baths. He would sit naked for 30 minutes to an hour by an open window, thinking that fresh air was helpful. And he lived to be old, so I guess maybe he was right. Actually, he and John Adams had to room together one time, and they had a big brawl over whether windows should be open or closed. And here's something that's interesting. George Washington was born on February 11th, 1731, according to the Julian calendar. But after Britain switched to the Georgian calendar, his birthday shifted to February 22nd, 1732. and that all happened when he was in his 20s. So that's interesting. Thomas Jefferson popularized ice cream and pasta in America after encountering them in Europe. Jefferson loved France. He was always over there. He even brought back a macaroni mold. He kept grizzly bear cubs caged on the White House lawn for a time and was obsessed with mastodon bones. So he was an odd duck, Thomas Jefferson. He was very touchy-feely. I would guess that he was, he was like the super sensitive guy of the time. And then Governor Morris, who spoke more than anyone at the Constitutional Convention and wrote the preamble, lost a leg in a carriage accident. And he also once won a bet by slapping Washington on the back. Washington was a big guy, so people were afraid of him. So slapping Washington on the back was not smart. Hi, Andrew Dorman. Happy Independence Day. Elon Musk and Hugh Hefner. Yes. Okay. So Ben Franklin was saucy. He was very saucy. He liked his women and he liked laying around naked. And I guess those two things worked together in his favor back then. Hi, Wanzhou. Nice to have you. Thank you for joining. Hi, OG, Lucille Chavone. Good to have you. All right, so we have some more. Let's see. John Hancock was a notorious smuggler, earning the name Prince of Smugglers before the Revolution. That's pretty interesting. I don't know. Did you all know that he was a smuggler? And it was interesting because he had the largest signature on the Declaration of Independence. It actually takes up about 6 square inches. So he's smuggling stuff, but he has this bold signature. Very interesting. Many of you know that George Washington had only one real tooth. By his inauguration, his dentures were made from various materials, but not wood, and they often fit poorly. That's why he didn't smile. He always looked so serious in paintings. He refused to smile because his teeth they were falling out of his head. Washington kept as pets foxhounds named Drunkard, Tipsy, and Madame Moose. Adams had a dog named Juno and Satan, and Jefferson kept grizzlies and other exotic animals, which we said already. So that's kind of interesting. Also, James Madison was the shortest president, about 5'4" and 100 pounds. He lost his first election, to get this, because he didn't provide alcohol to voters. Now, you might have heard the stories that that Washington and others, they would have parties, voting parties, because you could cast your ballots at polling sites, but they would bring like beer and booze, and it became more like a tavern kind of situation. Oftentimes the taverns were the polling sites. And so they gave away beer to the voters. Now we just give away votes to the illegals. Oh my God. All right, let's see what else I want to tell you. Let's see. Okay. Now and Paul Revere. He was not always grouped strictly with the core founders, he was a dentist, and he used dental forensics to identify a friend's body after the Battle of Bunker Hill. I mean, I didn't know Revere was a dentist. Did you? I mean, kind of interesting stuff. So these are the people that made America. Luthman. Buttigieg is a baloney smuggler. That's so bad, but so good. And there's plenty of shit spewers too, that over in the Dem side of the party. Well, what used to be the Dem side. I don't even know if they're real Dems anymore. Okay, so let's talk about some other interesting stuff. So this guy here, Thomas Lynch Sr. So he was an American planter and statesman from South Carolina. I visited one of his homes. He served as a delegate to the Continental Congress. Lynch used his immense influence to convince reluctant Northern and Southern delegates to appoint George Washington as commander-in-chief of the Continental Army. It wasn't just a fait accompli that Washington became the commander-in-chief. It was a struggle. I don't know if you know this, but George Washington, let me take this off for a minute. George Washington started a war with the Indians. He was a second son. And his father was a drinker. His mother was a narcissist. And they didn't have much. So Washington went off to become a surveyor. And how he started his military career was his brother's father-in-law became his mentor, and he was well regarded. And he got his commission into the military. And Washington accidentally, he was the one who shot the first shot that started the Indian Wars. It was unfortunate, but yeah, he was the one that did that. So that's not something that you always read in history books. But back to Lynch. Okay, so Washington, is the second son, and he had a questionable military career. He wasn't a fait accompli to be commander-in-chief, and so Lynch actually convinced the prominent delegate to appoint him as the commander of the Continental Army. He also proposed splitting the legislative branch into two houses to balance regional representation and population. But he couldn't sign he could not sign the Declaration of Independence. That is a typo. I have two typos in here and I didn't have time to fix it. So here's the reason he couldn't sign. He suffered a stroke while at the convention. And so they sent for his son, Thomas Lynch Jr., and he was born in Hopsawee Plantation here in South Carolina. So Lynch, races up to Philadelphia, and his goal is to try and help his father recover so that he could sign the Declaration. But his father never does recover. He was very, very afflicted. So the kid winds up signing. And here in this very famous painting of the Declaration of Independence, you see, look in the lower left corner, you see everybody looking forward, and you see one face looking out the window. And that is Thomas Lynch Jr., the actual signer of the Declaration of Independence, because his father couldn't do it. Father was a drunk, mother was a narcissist. I could be on the dollar bill. Richard, you're too much today. That's excellent. But it's true. We have this flowery belief that the founding fathers were without, reproach, that they were so, perfect, and and that the whole thing was so easy. And as we talked about yesterday, Washington was almost assassinated by one of his bodyguards because, New York were still loyalists to the crown, and they were trying to undermine these guys left and right. And New York had a lot of power because New York was like the trading capital of the world. There's a great novel out there called New York, and it follows New York from the Dutch settlers all the way to 9/11. I forget who the author is. Look it up. It is a big book. I enjoyed reading it so very much. But anyway, it's there's information. New York was not always a great place. It was actually a not great place, and it's not a great place again these days. Lisman said they've had 250 years of great PR. Yeah, they did. They did. Like Columbus, right? Columbus was hailed and revered, and all of a sudden he becomes a piece of shit because somebody found the writings of a very disgruntled doctor, who is Isabella's doctor, who sent the doctor over to South America. I can't remember where this all by the Taino, where the Taino tribes were. I think it was Honduras. I can't remember. I'm sorry, the country. But anyway, he really hated Columbus, and he wrote some nasty ass shit about it. And that diary survived, and nobody can find Columbus's diary anymore, supposedly. And so that's where all those nasty things come. So now they're tearing down statues of Columbus. But anyway, I digress. Who were the masterminds? The masterminds of the Constitution? The masterminds of the Constitution were Ben Franklin, Thomas Jefferson. Actually, John Adams had a lot to do with it. Washington, joined in, but he was reluctant. He wasn't one of the first. He stayed loyal to the crown for a long time. Lynch, absolutely. Lynch was one of the first. South Carolina played a huge role in the Revolution. So those were Jefferson. He came around. Jefferson was more of a lover than a fighter. He came around later, but Lynch and the South Carolina delegation, they really were the ones pushing. They were really the ones pushing. It wasn't Larry David. That show sucks. That's some. Oh, I forget the show that Larry David. That's the one that wrote Seinfeld. I'm just not connecting it. I'm sorry. Why I'm not getting the joke? I'm sure it's very funny. It's just me. But anyway, let's see. So that was Lynch. Okay. And somebody else or some other people that are very interesting. Let me introduce you to Anna Maria Lane. Okay. Very interesting woman. She was in frontline combat. She enlisted with her husband. She was thousands of women, they served as camp followers, working as nurses, cooks, and laundresses. She actively dressed as a man to engage in combat, and she joined with her husband. You didn't get a physical exam when you joined the Army back then, but if you were wounded, you got a physical exam, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. So she became famous in the Battle of Germantown. It was October 3rd, 1777. She fought under Washington, and it was a really bloody engagement and it was a Pennsylvania campaign. And during the fighting, she sustained a severe leg wound. Historians believe she may have refused immediate medical treatment to prevent her gender from being discovered, leaving her permanently disabled and lame for the rest of her life. But following the war, Lane and her husband, John, settled in Virginia, where she spent years volunteering as a nurse at a military hospital in Richmond. And as they grew older and feebler, Virginia Governor William H. Cabell advocated on their behalf to the General Assembly. And she, in 1808, February 6, 1808, the legislature awarded her an extraordinary pension of $100 per year for the rest of her life for performing extraordinary military services. And this was more than double the standard $40 annual pension that was awarded to common soldiers. So, there were women in the Revolutionary War that were recognized later on. I mean, I know a lot of you have heard about Deborah Sampson, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but hold on. He has a new HBO show. Oh, Larry David. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Hi, Ramon. Good to have you. First episode, he did the Constitutional Convention, must miss TV. Oh, that's funny. It was Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Oh, gotcha. Ramon says, I heard July 4th, the real No King's Day. Yeah, well, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. But today, we are celebrating all the people behind the revolution and how America became great. So here's Deborah Sampson. And just quickly, she enlisted in the 4th Massachusetts Regiment in 1782 under the name Robert Shirtless. So she became a private Robert Shirtless. She was assigned to an elite light infantry unit due to her height and her physical capability. Now, remember, we just talked about Adams being 100 pounds. So it was, not unusual. I'm sorry, Madison being 100 pounds, 5'4" and 100 pounds. So it wasn't, weird for men to be smaller. And Washington stood well over 6'2", which is why people said that he was chosen to lead the Continental Army and also president, because he had a very imposing presence. And that's, kind of where that saying, the tallest guy in the room gets to be the leader. She scouted territory, Sampson, led raids and fought in active skirmishes against British loyalists. She cut her own leg to extract a musket ball with a penknife to prevent doctors from discovering her gender. But then she was uncovered in 1783 after losing consciousness from a severe malignant fever in Philadelphia, probably from cutting that musket ball with the penknife. She was given an honorable discharge by General Henry Knox rather than facing punishment. And there were women who were fighting who faced punishment. I mean, some of them were arrested, thrown in jail. Some did. Some enlisted, as I said before. They disguised themselves to enlist so that they could get the paycheck, but didn't fight. And some fought and actually got in trouble. She ultimately married Benjamin Gannett and raised 3 children. And then she started becoming a professional lecturer, and she was performing military drills in full uniform. She campaigned for decades for back pay and federal veteran benefits, aided by Paul Revere. And they awarded it to her. Washington awarded her the benefits. She, too, got $100 a year for her service to the military. It was pretty cool. Where'd that go? Okay. So, people don't know that women served. I mean, really served. They usually think of them as camp followers and nurses, but they did. And that's how, when you think about this country, right? I mean, even then, they were forward thinking. Yes, they didn't. Women were not supposed to be serving. They were not supposed to be fighting, but they did. The Molly Pitcher, Mary Ludwig Hayes. They call her Molly Pitcher. It's between her and Molly Corbin. Both these women, why they conflated them, they put them together, is a lot of women were camp followers, and if their husband fell in battle, some of them took up arms. And Mary Ludwig Hayes did in the Battle of Battle of Monmouth. And then Molly Corbin did. She was fighting in Fort Washington at the Battle of Fort Washington in New York. And her husband died, and she started shooting cannonballs uh, at the redcoats. So yeah, interesting stuff. This woman, Katie Barry, she was a scout and a messenger for the military, and she helped at the Battle of Cowpens. Now, let's see. She was from South Carolina. I said it before. I mean, South Carolina, did an awful lot for uh, the Revolutionary War. They were the first to throw down the gauntlet, if you will, and they, men and women alike, they did all kinds of things. This woman was from Georgia, Nancy Hart. She captures loyalist soldiers in her home, and she, they say she shot at least one, but some others say dozens. And she was known for her marksmanship and her height. She was a tall woman. She was about people say close to 6 feet tall. So those Southern women weren't just the belles that you see, in Gone with the Wind, fainting and, needing their smelling salts. They were some crazy women. They would serve a tea of, I've just forgotten the name of the plant. We have them all over here. They're really pretty. They have really lovely flowers. And they boiled the flowers and the leaves, and they made tea, and they served it to the redcoats, and they later died. I mean, the women of the South are something else, I got to tell you. Okay, so lastly, because we're already running long, we have Eldridge Gerry, George Mason, and Edmund Randolph. They helped to draft the Constitution, not the Declaration of Independence. That was on me. I swapped two stories, but ultimately did not sign it because it didn't include protection for individual liberties. They feared that the central government would be too powerful, and it was their arguments in the constitutional convention that actually created the Bill of Rights. Thomas Jefferson wound up championing the Bill of Rights, and Eldridge Gerry wound up becoming vice president. But so they drafted the Constitution. They fought. They fought hard. Gerry's. I'll just read this because I think it's important. At the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia, Gerry initially participated as a moderate, but ultimately became a fierce critic. His primary argument against ratification was the absence of a federal Bill of Rights to protect private citizens and states from the newly established powerful central government. He formally listed his objections in a letter to the Massachusetts legislature, citing that the system had no security for the right of election and left individual liberties ambiguous and vulnerable. Along with George Mason and Edmund Randolph, Gerry declined to sign the Constitution on September 17, 1787. Although Gerry fought against the initial ratification of the Constitution, once it was adopted, he became a strong proponent of adding the protections he had demanded. Serving in the inaugural U.S. House of Representatives from 1789 to 1793, he played an instrumental role in shaping and passing the Bill of Rights. He frequently debated with James Madison to ensure the amendments restricted federal overreach and preserved state sovereignty. So, here's the thing that drives me insane is that these guys knew how dangerous it was for federal government to have too much power, for the central government to have too much power. And yet that's exactly where we wound up, where they were afraid that it wasn't going to happen. I love this comment. Wanzu says Kung Fu chai. So the tea that the Southern ladies served, yes, was Kung Fu chai. Very good. Where are you from, Wanzu? I mean, am I saying that right, Wanzu? good to know if you're in America or if you are in another country. We have a few people from other countries who join our show, especially our most famous one, Kevin Wall. And when Santillian came, he's from Hawaii, but we act like it's another country sometimes. And some people are from California and New York and some blue states, which is feeling like another country. But anyway, so I hope you enjoyed that little group of information about our founding fathers and mothers, because when we think of them as Boy Scouts, and we think of the women as, Betsy Ross sewing in the corner. And the truth is that they didn't have the luxury of saying, "Oh, you want to fight? No, sorry, you can't do it." Some did, some states or some battalions prosecuted women who served, but the most didn't. I mean, because what were they going to do if a woman wanted to pick up a gun and shoot the redcoats? They were going to let it happen. But it was the southern ones that usually had a hard time because of the gentry, because of the social aspect of it. Parents didn't want to ever hear that their daughter was fighting in the Revolutionary War or in any war. So Angela says, "Happy 4th of July. You proud to be an American." Me too. Our OG was happy with the information. I'm glad. Listen, our country is not perfect, but the men and women who founded it weren't perfect either. We're not perfect now. And anybody who wants to pretend that they are and that we should be perfect, they're not right in the mind. That document, the Constitution of the United States of America and the Bill of Rights, is an amazing document. It breathes. It does. It lives. It breathes. And that it could govern us now and make us the greatest nation in the world, the most free nation in the world, it's just amazing. It's never happened before. I mean, I would think that if you look at governments or systems, right, social systems that have been as powerful and as good as ours, probably the Romans were comparable to us, right? Especially for that time. But they went under, right? They went under. Rome fell. And it fell because it fell from the inside. It didn't fall from the outside. And what I'm trying to say here is that, America is built on the foundation that every man and woman has the ability to pursue their own happiness. And they have certain inalienable rights that no government can take away from them. And the government that our founding fathers set up is not a thing. It's us. And we can change it. And there are people who are trying to change it into exactly what our founding fathers were fighting against. And that breaks my heart, because 250 years, we're babies as opposed to Europe. We're babies. But we've forgotten. We've forgotten the value of the work that these men and women did. And some are just spitting in the face of it. And when I think of what was risked, and when I think of the torment that they must have felt gathering together, knowing that England, with all the ships and all the armies and all the people and all the everything, could come over and pluck you out. our chance of winning that war was so slim. I mean, probably the chance of winning the lottery was better. But they did it. They did it. They were so committed. They did it. And they did it for us. And now these kids who haven't been taught any of this history, they're acting as if those men and women were horrible people because they wanted to give them a chance. It's sad. It's sad. I don't have the answers to how to fix it, except for let's keep on talking about it. Let's keep on understanding that they weren't perfect, but they created a perfect document or a perfect structure. Let's put it that way, because that structure can be changed. That structure is not pure democracy where the majority rules and the minority gets nothing. That structure is a constitutional republic, is a representative government, which means that even though you don't agree, you still have rights. That it doesn't work that way in a democracy, and it certainly doesn't work that way in socialism or communism. So anyway, I hope you all have a fantastic 4th of July, and I hope the patriotic, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but I hope the spirit of the Eldridge Jerrys and the Deborah Sampsons and the Katie Barrys and the Thomas Jeffersons and the Thomas Lynch Jr. I hope that it gets into your bones and that you're willing to not roll over and let socialism take out what I know is the greatest country in the world. So on that note, I'm going to say happy 4th of July. Oh, thank you, Kevin Wall. I try. I'm a geek at heart, and I like to know shit. I'm so old though that soon I'm gonna die, and the shit's gonna go with me. But I like to know shit. I like to know where I came from, and I like to know. I don't think you can know where you're going if you don't know where you came from and the mistakes that you made getting there. Not just us, but everybody. And I'm glad that those men and women were rebels. And I'm a bit of a rebel. And I think everybody on this program is a rebel. Everybody who comes here and spouts off is a rebel. And you should be proud of it. Nothing to be ashamed of. Nothing proper about any one of us. Okay. Happy 4th. I love you all. Teresa, thanks. Loved having you. And we're going to keep on talking about America during this 250th. But in the meanwhile, please stay safe. Have a safe 250th celebration. Have a safe 4th of July. And remember, if you see something, say something. Just tips, because you never know, who's going to try and take us out. Hi, Gary. Good night, Gary. Love you all. I will see you on Tuesday.